Alright, we've let this sit for about an hour. I probably would let it sit for a little bit longer, but we're kind of rushing this. I'm going to come in, I'm going to grab the edges, and we're just going to hold by the edges because it's still going to be wet. And we're just going to knock off all the sand, and this is the product that you're going to get. We're going to place this off to the side just for now, because we still got some good sand here. So I'm just going to scoop this up all onto one piece of cardboard. This is a step that I learned through making tables. This is very important. This looks like milk, but it's really 50-50 Elmer's glue and water. Why this is so important is that when the glue dries here, you're still going to have sand sticking up. And when you try to paint that sand, it's just going to suck that paint. You're going to use twice as much paint as you normally would. If you use this, this is going to put another coat of glue on top, so you're not using as much paint. Plus, this is also going to protect your hill. It's going to make it, it's going to prevent the sand from breaking off. And when people are scraping their models across the hill, it's just going to last longer. So the trick to this, though, is that you want a little bit more water than glue, because that's the only way you're going to get it through the nozzle. I've broke more than one of these trying to get just the right ratio of glue and water in this. And I'm basically going to spray all over this. And it might mix a little bit with that glue underneath, but that's alright. It's basically going to be a solid piece holding on to all that glue. It's going to be good. Okay, so we've got our hill. I've painted it all black, and then I put a coat of dark brown on it. And I'm using this real cheap paint, which you can pick up at almost any craft store or a Walmart or anything like that. And I went with the dark brown, and my next coat on top of it's going to be a yellow. It's more of a yellowish brown. What I do is I dry brush this on. It's a little bit different than dry brushing a normal model, because when you're dry brushing a model, you've got your model that's normally smaller than the brush. With this, obviously, the hill is much larger than the brush. And there's a little, you got to get used to it a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a little bit of paint, a piece of cardboard here. You can also use a palette or something like that. I'm getting a lot of the paint off. And then I'm going to go off to the side and I'm going to scrape even more of it off. I do not want a lot of paint on this. This is, I'm getting just a little bit. And I'm going to test it. I'm going to test it on the edges here. If I get a little bit too much, I can scrape most of that off on here. And then I can go across when I feel comfortable that enough of that paint's been scraped off. What I'm trying to avoid is paintbrush streaks through it, so it looks like paint, or like a paintbrush. I want it to look somewhat natural. I have actually gone through and actually just gone swirly before, but you still see some paintbrushes like that, or paint strokes. So I'm just using a little bit of paint, and a little bit goes a long ways here. Okay, as I'm painting here, I'm getting areas, I want this kind of constant. I don't want like an area that's filled with it and an area that's not filled with it. But hopefully you can see on the camera here that I'm just getting the high points, and the low points is still that dark brown. Okay, so we've got our hill, we've got it dry brushed. We have one last step to do, and that's to apply flock. Now, flock is basically modeling grass, and it comes in a variety of colors and shapes. What I have, this is snow flock here. This is Woodlick Scenic static grass. I'm going to be using the Games Workshop grass. and I just have it in a different container so it's easier for me to work with. I'm going back to our 50-50 mix of glue and water, and I'm going to coat the entire table. I know some people will do spots, which is alright, but I think it looks a little bit more natural when you do this. I've realized this when I made tables. I just sprayed the entire table and threw flock down, and it looks a little bit better. There's not like a wall where like all of a sudden the grass stops growing. And you'll see it in a little bit here. So, here we are, spraying this down. You don't need a whole lot here, just make sure the whole thing's coated. We're going to get to our grass, and I'm just going to dump out a little bit here, put it in my hand, and I'm taking a pinch, a big pinch right there, and I basically just kind of put it down where I want it. Now, whatever sticks is not coming back up. It's going to stay there. I can dump a little bit off and it's going to move it around. Actually, I have a little pile here. Just give it a little blow. Again, guys, keep your minds out of the gutter. And I'm just hitting areas with it. I want this hill to be mostly brown. This is more of an orc hill. But if you're going to have a normal hill, maybe you're going to flock the whole thing. It's all up to you at this point. This is your world. So just kind of hit everything where you want it to go. Some of the areas that have mound up, hit that. And then there are areas on here where I have noticed that there was a little crack building up. Remember earlier I kept on telling you, fill up those cracks, fill up those cracks. Well, I let one slip. This will cover up a little bit of those problems that you had. Then keep a little flock in the area. I'm just flocking all the way around. Believe it or not, one container of this Games Workshop stuff can last you quite a long time. I can do an entire table with just one of these containers. Here I'm just kind of sprinkling it all over. And you can see I've got static grass all over it. Gives it a nice look. There's no lines, you know, where you can tell where there's grass and mud. Now you can kind of see a little bit of mud and it looks kind of natural. Kind of something I've kind of found out by just working with terrain. So, we've got our final hill here. Now, this is a basic hill using the basic materials. You could go ahead, make it a different size. You can make it a different color with different flock. It's your world. You do whatever you want to. Here, I'm just showing you tips, and hopefully some of my tips have helped you. Now, if you have any tips that you want to give me, or if you have any further questions on something I might have missed today, you can contact me at thegoblinworkshop@yahoo.com. You can also check me out on Facebook. But for today, we're hoping that you enjoyed the show.